Um, we're going to talk about hopefully the best way to get faster in triathlon. Um, Terry, you have this concept that you've written about often called the heartbeat budget and economy and efficiency in swimming. Can you tell us a little bit about this idea of the heartbeat budget and how it applies to a triathlete versus someone in a swim competition?
Right. That the heartbeat budget is kind of a catchy phrase. I find it has resonated with a lot of people. We're really talking. I think Mike would say we're talking about an oxygen consumption budget, but heartbeat is a little bit easier to understand. So I've chosen that phrase, and I got this idea from this conversation with Mike, who, by the way, is a pretty serious athlete himself. A nationally ranked master swimmer, a really fast marathoner who's doing some triathlon training at the moment. And Mike and I, quite some time ago, had a chat where I asked him if he could describe in some way the different energy cost of going a little bit faster in each of the three disciplines. And as he said to me, that the increase in oxygen cost to go a little bit faster in running was linear. It would be, if you went 2% faster, it would be about 2% more oxygen cost, whereas the oxygen cost in swimming was considerably higher. So a small increase in swimming speed would come at much greater cost in energy. And from that, I came up with the idea that every triathlete should think in terms of the entire event having a heartbeat budget. So if the event takes 2 hours and you have, let's say, an average heart rate of 160 beats over the course of it, understanding that your heart rate is going to vary, that you would be the smartest to save heartbeats in the swim, because they convert into a lot more speed on the run, which is just another way of saying finish the swim with a low heart rate.
Uh-huh. Mike, do you remember having that conversation with Terry? And tell us about how you derived those guidelines.
Terry and I have been having a continuous conversation one way or the other via email or other forms for about 4 or 5 years, but the basic idea that Terry alluded to is that things get curvilinear in swimming and cycling, but as Terry mentioned, are linear in running. So the basic idea is to improve your efficiency and go as fast as you can without generating or needing a high oxygen cost with your swimming, and then be in a position to use that energy in the bike or in the run. And Suzanne, basically, if you look at world-class athletes, the ratio is something like 2 miles an hour of swimming equals about 8 miles an hour of running equals about 20 miles an hour of biking. And what's interesting is that because you're in the water, or because you're going very fast in the cycle, either the water resistance or the wind resistance is much more difficult to overcome than at the relatively low speeds associated with running. So that explains the linear increase in oxygen consumption at a given speed, as you increase speed in running, and the more curvilinear effects in swimming and cycling.
Okay, so how can you describe that in maybe some simpler terms? If there's a linear increase with running and curvilinear, well, how does that translate into speed? If I'm going to raise my heart rate by 10 beats on the swim or the bike.
Right. So if you increase your oxygen consumption by about 5% on the run, you'll go about 5% faster, all things being equal, as Terry said. But if you increase your oxygen consumption 5% on the swim, you might only go 1 or 2% faster, or maybe 2 or 3% faster on the bike. So I think I remember seeing a statistic one time to increase from 25 to 30 miles an hour. So we're talking about world-class cycling speeds. With no drafting, people almost have to double their power output. Power output.
To go from 25 to 35, you said?
25 to 30.
Oh, 25 to 30.
Yeah, there may be some people there that have more recent access to that data, but you get the basic idea. Whereas to go from, say, 8 miles an hour to 10 miles an hour would only be about a 20% increase in oxygen consumption for running.
Okay, and that's because of the increased resistance with higher speeds, right?
Higher speeds from the wind, and paradoxically, people attempt to set hour records in cycling at the velodrome in Mexico City. Who in the world would try to set an endurance record at 7,000 feet? They do that because the air is thinner up there and there's less wind resistance. The same is also true for speed skating. Some of the fastest speed skating rinks are at 5,000 or 6,000 feet for the very same reasons.
How about low density water? Is there such a thing for swimming?
People have attempted to screw around with the as Terry will tell you, the salt concentrations and the osmolarity of the water, and I believe there's actually some rules about that, so that the people don't become more buoyant.
Well, I must say that low density water, it means streamline.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and people have tried. If you think about the suits.
Yeah, evade drag.
Evade, and again, people. I think there are regulations by FINA, the Swimming Association, for pool swimming, about the salinity of the water because they don't want to make people more buoyant.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.